Sure.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not hard to understand spending $23 million on the school, right? I
No.
mean, can't build much. I mean, they built the Aurelia Library for 24 million how many years ago?
Yeah. And the one thing that I thought was very interesting in the article I read was they had this brilliant idea that they could save costs if they utilized previous plans for schools. There's a novel idea. And
Wow.
keep it simple, like not the big foyer thing where,
They should be building with the new energy requirements in mind.
We're ready to go, folks.
Just waiting for Jim. I can't. He's got a different format. David's just helping.
okay.
Just give me one sec.
David can pop across and help him.
He is. He's right there. He's just helping.
Lovely.
Okay. He's got a different format on his computer.
Did you want to get started?
If you like, do you want to? Okay.
We can just get through the first couple things.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We'll begin with our land acknowledgement. At the Township of Severn, we recognize the following land acknowledgement. We'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather and which the Township of Severn operates is part of the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe. For thousands of years, Indigenous peoples have been inhabiting and caring for this land. In particular, we acknowledge the territory of the Ojibwe or Chippewas peoples. This territory is covered by the Lake Simcoe Treaty 16 and the J. Collins Land Purchase. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land, and by doing so, give our respect to its first inhabitants. We'll have a moment of reflection, please. Thank you. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Councillor Taylor.
Yes, I at 1.1, I own a lot in the new subdivision on Shepherd Street in Coldwater.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, does anyone want to pull anything on the consent agenda?
Your worship, I think we skipped E1.1 or E1.
Okay. Oh, we did. Sorry. Public meetings, various applications for cancellation, reduction, or refund of taxes under sections 356, 357, 358 of the Municipal Act. Section 357, tax write-offs, October the 4th, 2023. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
Sure. So the motion reads that the applications for cancellation, reduction, or refund of taxes in the amount of $3,857.02 be approved.
A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Cox, second by Councillor Taylor. All in favor? That's carried. We'll just need to wait for Councillor McIntyre. I'm not sure what happened.
David's still working with him.
Not sure if he has anything he wants to pull on the consent agenda.
Want me to ask?
Maybe I'll just ask.
Go.
Okay, just ask him, please.
We're losing people here.
See that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you. Yes, we can, Councillor Brennan.
No.
Nothing on the consent? Okay. No. Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
Yes, the motion reads that the agenda be adopted, including consent items as circulated.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Minning, second by Deputy Mayor Cox. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. G2.1, correspondence, annual report from physician recruitment. Oh,
Your
sorry.
worship, that was on consent, so
Oh, was it?
I
Okay.
think we're already through that one.
All right. H1.1, reports from officials, planning and development, planning report number P23-031, repeal and replace bylaw number 2023-50, lifting of the 1 foot reserve along 26, 28, and 30 Shepherd Street, Coldwater. Good morning, Ms. Woodrow.
Good morning, Mayor Burkett and members of council. I just wanted to give a bit of background on this replacement bylaw. Staff brought forward the original bylaw to council in June in an attempt to be proactive before your summer recess, such that building permits could be issued if the developer completed all of the services during the summer recess. Unfortunately, when our solicitor went to register the bylaw with Land Registry, they had indicated they wanted a definitive date for the bylaw, not a future date when something was to occur. So this bylaw will take effect immediately upon passage and replace the previous bylaw.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, do you have a motion, Madam Clerk?
Motion reads that planning report number P23-031 regarding a new draft bylaw to repeal and replace bylaw 2023-50 with respect to the 1 foot reserves located at 26, 28, 30 Shepherd Street be received. And further that the draft bylaw be prepared for further consideration at the October 4th, 2023 council meeting.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Minning, second by Deputy Mayor Cox. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll wait for Councillor Taylor to come back. Uh, 1.2 planning report number P23-032 Township of Severn's response to the Housing Affordability Task Force's recommendations. Who would like to start off? Is that you, Ms. Woodrow? Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Burkett. So in February of 2022, the Housing Affordability Task Force delivered 74 recommendations to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, with the overall provincial goal of 1.5 million homes by 2031. To date, 23 of the recommendations have already been implemented. Some of these we've actually seen through the planning department, including exempting non-waterfront developments of 10 units or less from site plan approval, and the refund of application fees if approval timelines aren't met. 50 municipalities, and those are included and listed in attachment 4 to your report. These municipalities have already been assigned housing targets by the minister and will potentially be eligible for funding and strong mayor powers in the future. Similar to the letter the Township of Severn received, which is also included in the report, these 50 municipalities have also been asked for their top 5 recommendations. However, they have also been asked to comment on each of all 74 recommendations. This is a little different from the remaining Ontario municipalities, including us here at Severn. We've just been asked for our top 5 recommendations. We have not been asked to comment on all 74. The top 5 recommendations can also include comments on any of the 23 that are already implemented. There are remaining housing targets to be assigned by the minister and funding available for small, rural, and northern municipalities. A few suggested recommendations that do not place an additional financial or resource burden on the township have been suggested within the report as a starting point for council's discussion. At this point, it's unclear to staff what criteria might be used to select additional municipalities for targets and funding in the future. So as a first step, staff are recommending a timely response by the township to the minister's request. Ms. Mandeville's here as well. She's the township's representative on the county's municipal housing liaison group to assist in any discussions and questions. So Mayor Burkett, I'll turn it back over to you and council as the minister's looking for council's top 5 recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the report to both you and Katie. Who would like to start off? Nobody has any comments? Deputy Mayor Cox.
Yeah, through the chair. I agree with these. I think it's right. Make it easier to build rentals, make homeownership possible. The one I looked at was also, I need an explanation. It was number 67. It was called Allow Cash in Lieu Payments for Inclusionary Zoning Unit. I don't understand what that is. And it permit municipalities that have not passed inclusionary zoning policies to offer incentive and bonuses. So what is an inclusion, zoning?
Who would like, oh, Miss Mandeville, you're smiling. Go ahead. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Through the mayor to the deputy mayor, I'm not really sure what inclusionary zoning is. I'm not up to date on that. To my understanding, and I think Andrea maybe might recall this better than me, we don't have these types of policies because we're a small municipality. Essentially, from my vague recollection without looking it up, I believe it has to do with pre-zoning for higher densities and rental units and things like that. However, I could totally be mistaken. So I'll pass it over to her if she recalls.
Ms. Woodrow.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Burkett, through you to Deputy Mayor Cox. I believe there's inclusionary zoning and exclusionary zoning. So the inclusionary zoning is more to permit things as of right, and exclusionary zoning would require site-specific zoning amendment consideration on a site-specific basis. That's my general understanding. We can certainly give you more information on that in the future. It just hasn't really pertained to us given our size. Thank you.
And then when I read in the AMO that the policy came out, the recommendation to hold developers accountable, I talked to Andrea about that, and we already can do that. We have a policy in place. The only other one I wondered was something about the one that was 15. It was to streamline the approval processes. It said, establish province-wide zoning standards or prohibitions for minimum lot sizes, maximum building setbacks, minimum heights. Is that something that would help streamline the approval process?
Who would like to take that? Ms. Mandeville.
Thank you, Mayor Burkett, to Deputy Mayor Cox's question. This actually is something we have talked about at our county housing group. I think that's very difficult, and I think council would want to think about that. I think it's one thing for a municipality that has, their entire municipal boundary is an urban area. I don't think in the township of Severn, if you start to think that through, if standardized lot sizes and standardized setbacks and standardized lot coverage would work for the township of Severn, considering the diversity of lot sizes and land uses and everything else that we have in this township. So I'm not sure how that could help us. And I think we're trying to look at recommendations that would help the township of Severn build more houses rather than, the city of Toronto or, a larger municipality, or even a municipality like the town of Midland that, mostly their entire municipality is within their urban built up boundary.
But supplemental.
Yes.
But is there not something that should be done to streamline this? I mean, no offense. I believe that they brought this bill forward and you have to build so many homes, but there still is not a streamlined process. There still is red tape, paperwork that does hold it up, and it's not always our fault. Like we run into no hydro, Bell can't get in. I mean, that's beyond our control. But I mean, there are policy rules that hold us up and hold our ratepayers up, and then they feel it's our fault. So I didn't know if there was anything in there that we could say that our problem, number one, is we get a lot of holdups here because of those types of things. Or am I wrong?
Ms. Mandeville.
Back as a follow-up to the deputy mayor, absolutely, we have holdups here. However, the only thing that comes to my mind that would expedite the process here in Severn is more consultants. we're constantly waiting for peer review consultants because there just isn't enough of them. There's not enough engineers. There's not enough environmental consultants. There's not enough hydrogeologists. There's not enough of those kind of people, which is different than the skilled trades recommendation. But I think that's equally as important. These people are trying to get approvals, but there's no builders, there's no electricians, there's no plumbers. So I think next month, council, or later this month, I guess, council will see our process and how that works and what is within the township's realm of control and what is not. But I think at this point, the only thing I could see that would streamline it, to me, red tape is things we have to look at for the health and safety of our residents and our environment. I think a lot of people would think that having an environmental consultant review something is red tape. But I think that's important for the environment. So I think it just depends what your view stance on that is. I don't think that there's necessarily one thing that pops out at us, but I could defer back over to the director to see if she has any thoughts on that too.
Thank you. Ms. Woodrow?
At this point in time, thank you, Mayor Burkett. I think I'll just let comments and questions come forward, and we'll continue to respond.
So we couldn't, through the chair again, we couldn't add that about what you had just said, Ms. Vanderbilt, to the ideas of the supply of skilled trades, or as one that we just put in, because if it's holding us up, it's holding everyone up. The lack of consultants. I don't know. Is that something? I think it's important because we have developers that are saying we're slow and it's not our fault.
Ms. Mandeville?
Yeah, back to the deputy mayor. I suppose we could somehow incorporate that, like a shortage of qualified professionals in their field that kind of goes with the skilled trades. I think Ms. Woodrow had her hand up briefly there, so she might have a thought on that as well.
Ms. Woodrow?
Thank you, Mayor Burkett. Through you to Deputy Mayor Cox. I'm just wondering, the minister said we could also, provide comments on recommendations that are already implemented. So we could build on the skilled trades comment that's already implemented and say, in addition to skilled trades, we'd also like to see, more qualified professionals to assist with development review and that sort of thing. Right,
because I think that was 53, 54, 55. So if there was something in there that we could do that, then I would like that, only because that's a clog for us more than red tape or anything else. That's one issue that we have. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Brennan, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, in that line of thinking, sorry, by the way, my video's out, so I'm using the reaction buttons. A lot of the times, and AMO acknowledges this in their correspondence, it's the builders who sit on applications for a long periods of time. And it just seems to me that I don't know if we know to what extent the time to develop a housing unit, how much of that time is in their hands versus in our hands. And I think we have to be very careful about that. Them taking advantage of streamlining situations on our side, especially if they're compensated in some drastic way, versus the fact that they're just sitting on the stuff doing nothing. I'm just wondering if Katie could comment on that in terms of streamlining.
Ms. Mandeville?
Through the mayor to Councillor Brennan. Absolutely. We see certain builders and developers sitting on their projects, whether that's lots that are already approved for development that are not being built yet, or whether that's the township's provided comments to them and it takes them 6 months to submit, or a year to submit a resubmission, and then they submit a package to us a year after we gave them comments, and then 3 weeks later they're complaining to member of council that we aren't doing anything on their file and this is taking too long. Certainly we see that a lot. But we do also have developers who are trying to do this as quickly as they can, and they have quick turnarounds, and then the onus is more on us. So I think it's really a mixed bag.
Yeah, just supplementary to that, it just seems to me if we have to pay penalties for our game, they should pay penalties for their game, and they should lose any rights to come after us because we've got an environmental firm doing a study or whatever it may be. It just seems to me streamlining has got to be two-sided. There's two sides to the sword on this. also on the supplementary, the idea of compensating companies when we're trying to protect heritage values is very disturbing to me. And I mean, just I can't imagine us sort of saying, oh, well, we want to protect the old mill here in Severn, and we're going to pay you thousands of dollars, because of that. Like, it to me, it just seems absurd. And even though we're forwarding, and I have no objections to what you've suggested, it's just that AMO has, there's a good list. There's more than one good list one could generate on this one here. And I thought AMO's got some good thoughts in there as well. So it's not like we don't support what AMO is saying. I mean, they're representing us. It's just we have to pick and choose, I guess, if we're going to meet the requirements. And again, AMO points out something I found disturbing. I didn't even think about it at the beginning of reading this stuff, was that this request was specifically to the mayors only, not councils. They wouldn't allow an extension to allow councils to deliberate this. It's that same old stuff again. And anyway, so there was a comment there, I think, about it being to council, but it reads like it's to the mayors only. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just to follow up, one of the thoughts from AMO was that a fair, sustainable funding framework to support infrastructure that is not unduly subsidized by existing property owners. So how do we make sure that the developers pay their fair share for future development? It's not burden on the poor people that are still paying taxes now. So where is that captured, or can it be captured?
Who would like to answer that? Ms. Woodrow.
Sorry, could I just ask you through the mayor, Councillor Taylor, for which recommendation number you're on there?
No, I did that. This is just the email that came out from AMO, and so they came up with five thoughts there, and this one just basically saying that make sure that the existing taxpayers aren't paying for things that are being paid for by the developers currently, and it's going to. I think one of the recommendations is that they want to take away parkland property or 5% and stuff like that. So how do we make sure that doesn't change?
Madam CEO.
Thank you. Sorry, voice issues this morning. Through the chair. So what I've heard so far is that they're probably all important, and we have to pick 5. And there wasn't a huge objection to the 5. So I wonder if we prepare our letter with 5, but and in the bottom kind of do what AMO does and say, and we support what AMO is saying. Yes. On particularly on the development should pay for development. Yep. And we also have a concern with skilled trades. Not just skilled trades, but the consultants that support the development process. So I think we can probably hit all the birds with just a few extra sentences at the end of the letter, if that works for council.
Okay, thank you. Is that okay with council?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yep. Are there any further comments? Councillor Brennan, I
was just supporting what the CAO has put forth. I like that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Woodrow.
Thank you, Mayor Burkett. I just wanted to note that Katie and I recommended 8 potential recommendations in the staff report. There's only room for 5. So there is still a bit of some refinement we will need from you, if you don't mind, please.
Okay, so I just want to add, if I may, to Councillor Brennan's comments about builders and their applications that are still on hold. And I didn't know this, and I can't remember if it was 49,000 or 25,000, but I did hear 49,000. At the county level, I heard that there's let's go with 25,000, but still a huge number. There are 25,000 outstanding building permits that have been approved. So these developers or residents have gone through the process, and all they would need to do is come in and pay for their building permit, and they could build. So I'm not sure if the minister's aware of that, and if there's some mechanism. And of course, I guess some of the developers may be hanging out for more money, and that, I can understand that. But is there a mechanism to somehow push these developers? And I know of 3 three developments right here in Severn, right off the top of my head. One that's been on the books since '96, and there's 42 homes just in that subdivision, and it has gone nowhere. And it's I think it's almost at the stage where they could probably build. But I'm just curious if that's something that we could add, or maybe we shouldn't add, just to maybe Miss Woodrow or Miss Mandeville, if you'd like to comment.
Sure. To the mayor's question, I could start off on that. I wonder if you might be talking about lots that are approved on draft plans of subdivision.
I think they're both, like, they're approved. My understanding is all they need to come in and do is pay their building fees and they get their permit. So they've gone through the whole process, whatever needs to be done, and it's just sitting there waiting.
So I think to add on to that comment, something we've definitely seen in Severn, which I think is what you're mentioning, is old approvals that don't expire, right? And if we try and do something to expire those, you know, it's the end of the world. But at the same time, is that development that was approved in 1996 or 2006, is that really appropriate to move forward today? So perhaps one of the things you might want to mention at the end of the letter is requiring development, you know, that is more than, I don't know what number on the spot to put on it, but more than 10 years old, to, you know, update their situation to provide more density. Because chances are, if it was approved more than 10 years ago, it doesn't provide a lot of density. It doesn't provide a lot of extra homes there. It's probably a whole lot of single detached dwellings, sorry, rather than, you know, townhouses or something of a more dense form. So perhaps that could be something. I'm not sure how you force someone to pick up a building permit, but certainly, you know, if their approvals were going to expire, that might incentivize them to either develop a subdivision themselves or sell it to someone else who's going to develop it.
And I guess my comment, just to build on what Councillor Brennan, thank you for that explanation, Katie, but is the minister aware that there's all these building permits that are already pre-approved and all they need are the developers to move forward and build, right? If they're looking to build more homes, there's none of the process that they need to go through where it's going to take years to approve new homes. Are already there, pre-approved. All they need is the money, right? Ms. Mandeville.
Yeah, to your comment, Mayor Burkett, absolutely. I think a lot of organizations, I think Andrea and I's professional association, as well as lots of other professional associations, when some of these recommendation reports from the province were coming out, I think a lot of those associations, probably AMO as well, were coming forward and saying, well, hold on, there's enough lots in all of these urban boundaries. There's enough land in these boundaries. There's enough previous approvals. We don't actually need more land, and we don't need this housing task force. We just need developers to actually develop the land that they're sitting on.
Thank you. Well said. That's exactly what I meant. Councillor Minnings.
Hi, thank you. And respectfully to the comments that you just made about the timelines, recently, in the last 6 months anyway, this council approved extensions to one townhouse development in Ward 4 that's been sitting for a long time, of several years, and another with 8 homes. So I think we also have a responsibility among ourselves to keep developments that are ready to be developed moving forward. So I don't see it all as being a recommendations bucket that we need to be consistent, or at least have some clear criteria for when we do provide extensions.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Cox.
Yeah, if you look at number 51, it says enable its recommendations to hold developers accountable for building. Municipalities have continuously highlighted the hundreds of thousands of approvals that sit sometimes for years without building permits being pulled. Recommendations like the following can play a critical role. Enable municipalities subject to adverse external economic events to withdraw infrastructure allocations from any permitted projects where construction has not been initiated within 3 years of building permits being issued.
Sorry, where did you read that? Number
51. It's not one that we had recommended, but it was in that AMO one that was there, and it was number 51. And
Well, it goes from 47 to 52. There's no 51 on my page. I didn't see that. All right, but thank you for that.
51.
All right.
Sorry.
Well, thank you for that. That's great. That they recognize that there are actually all these housing lots that are.
Yeah, because when I read it, I thought about what you had said before and today about all these ones that just sit.
Ms. Woodrow.
Thank you, Mayor Burkett. Just further to your comments and Deputy Mayor Cox's comments, the township currently has a policy whereby we can withdraw servicing allocation to draft approved plans of subdivision. So if the minister is in support of also potentially putting in restrictions for final approved subdivisions that are eligible for building permits, that could be something then we could amend our policy to capture that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Minnings.
I also have a question on recommendation number 41, so I'm not sure if you're ready to move forward to another one. And it's really a definition of marginalized people. I'm wondering if somebody has a sense where I'm going with this. Are we talking about seniors or people who are at risk of losing their rental for various reasons? Maybe there's no elevator and they need an elevator now. These are all situations that have been brought to my attention, and they're forced to move, but can not on their fixed incomes, whatever they are, can no longer afford today's rates. And we see people like that, and certainly two that I'm familiar with, living in the Lighthouse shelter on a long-term up to 4-year basis. So I'm just looking to know, with that sort of caveat, a little bit more about marginalized people.
Who would like to speak to that? Ms. Mandeville.
Thank you, Mayor Burkett, to Councillor Minning's comment. Unfortunately, there is no definition included within their documents of the marginalized people. But I think that the recommendation is a generalized, create projects for people, who don't have careers and who don't have the same access potentially to housing opportunities that most of the other or lots of the other people in our society do. So I think it's just meant to be a generalized promotional tool, a generalized funding opportunity for special interest groups to create those opportunities.
Yeah, thank you for that. And understanding that it's not defined in writing, I was just wanting to verify that. And if that's the case, then I think that's a broad reaching recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Cox.
Through the chair to Andrea and Katie. Okay, there's 8 here. What are the top 5 that you think? Because you are the planners, the whole thing. I mean, there's 2 in here for our, the OLT. There's various ones, and I feel that if you could give me or anybody else the top 5 that you think pertain, because I don't know which ones would be more important in the planning process. I may have ones that I think are, but I don't know that it is for Severn made policy.
Ms. Woodrow?
Thank you, Mayor Burkett. Through you to Deputy Mayor Cox. I may just look to Madam Clerk to see if at this point in time she'd be willing to possibly put the recommendations up on the screen for council to see how we are proposing. Okay. Is that okay, Madam Clerk, or do you want me to go through these in more detail?
You can certainly try. Give me a moment.
Okay, thank you. I think just a visual would help.
Yes, thank you.
Are you looking for the report or just the motion?
The eight recommendations that were put forward, and then out of those 8, we need to pick 5.
And I'm saying I would really like a recommendation from our 2 planning staff, because they are the ones that deal with this every day. This is their expertise, and you've always led us pretty much down the right line. So.
While I get it ready on a separate sheet of paper, I'm just going to put the planning report up. So Here's your recommendations here.
We got it. Thank you.
So
if I may, Mayor Burkett, so we had, Katie and I had grouped them based on theme in the affordability report, task force report. So recommendations 30 and 31 prevent abuse of the appeal process. So basically, you could group these in together, I guess, as potentially one theme, although it's not really one recommendation. Probably out of these two, probably number 31 would be most important. I don't know, Katie, if you have any additional comments on that.
I think through Mayor Burkett, I think I would agree that 31, if you're picking between those two, that 31 would be the most important, since we know infrastructure decisions, no housing can go ahead without those infrastructure decisions.
Is council okay with 31? I can't see everyone.
I am.
Okay, everyone
Yes.
okay? Okay.
Yep, I am.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Woodrow?
Okay, let's just see here. So of the next group, they are, well, actually, sorry, modernizing HST thresholds recommendation number 36 actually stands on its own. So if, council is of the opinion that this would be, something that would help to incentivize housing being built, and that updating the HST rebate provisions, then this is certainly something that we would include.
Okay.
Is everyone okay with 36?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on.
Katie and I had looked at the Make It Easier to Build Rentals theme, recommendation number 37. Just because we're starting to see, as council's aware, the low rise apartment building that's going to be coming online in Coldwater, and the huge interest in that. So we're starting to see those types of proposals. So perhaps to incentivize those, the taxes could be adjusted so that they're more fair. I guess that would be my only point on that one. That would be for from a taxation perspective, if council's interested in that.
Sorry, I know you can't see me.
Here, I can unshare for a second so you can.
Okay. Purpose-built rentals. Could I get a definition on that, please?
Ms. Woodrow?
Certainly, through you, Mayor Burkett, to Councillor Minning. So that is when a proposal is identified for rental purposes and is built as such, and is not to be considered for conversion for ownership, such as condominium, where additional fees and charges would be imposed. So it's when you know up front that it's going to be rental, and it has to stay as rental. No conversion allowed.
Thank you. So then supplementary under number 41, when they're talking about pilot projects and innovative pathways, that could be considered as purpose-built rental in that recommendation also.
Through Mayor Burkett to Councillor Minnings, that is absolutely correct, yes.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Cox, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I agree with this, because I've had two. I know that the seniors apartments in Coldwater want to expand. And I know that we've had two developers that have come in with rental units eventually in a phase for them. So I think this is important, because if you have rental units in places like West Shore, Coldwater, any of the sort of built up areas, that means that seniors can leave their homes, rent in the same area they live in, and find a place to live. And then that frees up homes for people to buy.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so everyone's in favor of...
Yeah, Your Worship.
Go ahead, Councillor Taylor, sorry.
Yeah, just a question. I agree with what was said there, but what if down the road it changes from rental to ownership, then that would be triggered. Then the taxes would be readjusted. Then, Andrea, how would that work? Or it like sometimes they start off being rentals and then down the road we're going to turn them into condos or something like that.
If I may, Mayor Burkett, through you to Councillor Taylor, certainly these types of projects do receive some type of funding, typically from the county, and I think it's registered on title as such. So I've seen a project in Aurelia whereby it was built as rental, and then the developer wanted to change it to condominium to then sell the units, but was not permitted to do so as it was registered on title. That could not be undertaken due to funding from the county for rental homes.
That's so we would state that in our plans then too. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, just on the taxes thing, I'm just curious, and perhaps through you, Mayor, to Andrea, wouldn't it actually help things more if the actual taxes were, and for me to say this, I could almost choke, but if the taxes were taken off the building materials and so forth that the builder does, like in other words, if the builder doesn't have to pay all these taxes, it might be more appealing to build rental units, because I would have thought that rental units taxes wouldn't be all that bad anyway. Surely to God, it wouldn't be like a normal house. So if you made it more enticing for the developer to build these kinds of homes, wouldn't that be a better way to do it?
I see Mr. Plunkett's here. Good morning, Mr. Plunkett. I think you want to comment.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. If I can just respond to Councillor Brennan, the builder already gets full ITC rebate for the HST he pays on. So if he's paying on building supplies, he's getting it all back anyways.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay, thank you. Well, that answers that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Yep. Okay, so is any more comments? So we're in favor of that. I forget what number it was now. 37, I think. Was it 37?
Yeah, I will share my screen again at this point.
Good.
Just so you have it.
So is that 3 out of the 8 or 4?
You're actually down to 6. It was only ever 7 from the way I can find it, unless I missed one. But you're down to 6, so you just need to
take one
more out.
Through the chair, Councillor Brennan has his hand up. I'm not sure if it's an old hand or a new hand, but
okay, Councillor Brennan, sorry.
My mistake, sorry.
Okay. What about provide provincial and federal loan guarantees for purpose-built rental, affordable rental, and affordable ownership? Should we take that one out?
Chances are we're never going to see it.
Yeah,
that's totally out of our control. Totally out of our control.
Yeah.
Is everyone
we try all the time for these things and we never get anything? So,
is everyone okay with that?
That works for me.
Okay, so I think we have 5. So, if there's no further comments, if Madam Clerk, if you have a motion.
Okay, so bear in mind there's a motion and then there'll be direction to staff for notes to be included in the correspondence that goes with the 5 recommendations. So the motion reads that planning report number P23-032 regarding the September 15th, 2023 request from the Honorable Paul Calandra, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, for the township's response to the Housing Affordability Task Force recommendations be received. And further, that as requested by the minister, staff be directed to submit a letter in the general form of attachment 5, outlining the township's top 5 task force recommendations as follows prior to the October 16th, 2023 deadline. 1, to prevent abuse of the appeal process, recommendation number 31. 2, modernizing HST thresholds, recommendation number 36. 3, make it easier to build rentals, recommendation number 37. Make homeownership possible for hardworking Ontarians who want it, recommendation number 41. And number 5 is affordable housing, appendix B. And then there's notes below that say that council's requested that comments be submitted in general support of AMO's submission on the matter, and with respect to the shortage of, I'm going to say, other professions and consultants to help expedite planning reviews and approvals.
Okay, is council okay with that? No further comments? Okay, great. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Cox, second by Councillor Taylor. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much, Ms. Woodrow and Ms. Manaville, for all that. That's great. I know that a lot of reading, a lot of thought, but thank you for that. Okay, moving on. Public Works Report number W23-041, Sidewalk Maintenance. Good morning, Mr. Burke. Oh, maybe he's not here.
He is. Give him a minute. At least
okay.
Is that working?
Morning, Mr. Burke.
Good morning. How is everyone?
Good, thanks. We're on the sidewalk maintenance one, if you'd like to speak to it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this report summarizes the township sidewalk maintenance accounts are basically spent. And so we have an opportunity to add some additional work through a contracted service that's already engaged. And that's for the Coldwater sidewalk replacement in front of the Shell. So the request here is to transfer some of the operating funds from an account through bridge maintenance, which saw a sort of failure to execute one of the projects that we would have liked to do through pretty aggressive and high bid numbers. So we canceled that. We'll see that in 24 capital budget, and then we can redirect some funds.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Cox.
Thank you very much, through the chair. This is something that needs to be done. It's dangerous. I saw a lady trip and some kid on a skateboard trip. So I am very happy that we're going to do it, and the businesses are, and people will be safe. So thank you very much, Mr. Burke.
Any further comments? Madam Clerk? Oh, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just to follow up, Derek, the work on Lovering Line Bridge there, is that going to be in the budget for next year? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, through the chair, so the Lovering Line Bridge has a wearing surface that's coming off, and so one of the maintenance items identified was to replace it. We put it out to tender under an operating budget, but it was significantly higher than the cost estimate and the thresholds we had set aside for it. So we'll see that in the 24 budget to ensure that that wearing surface is replaced in 24.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
Certainly. The motion reads that Public Works Report number W23-041 dated October 4th, 2023, with respect to sidewalk maintenance be received, and further that the 2023 approved operating budget for sidewalk maintenance be increased by $25,000, and further that the 2023 approved operating budget for bridge maintenance be decreased by $25,000.
Okay. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Minning, second by Deputy Mayor Cox. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on, Public Works Report number W23-040, 2024 Road Resurfacing Program. Mr. Burke.
Did we lose Councillor Brennan?
No, he's here.
No, he's here. He's just got his video off.
Oh, I didn't see his name. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. And yes, so through the mayor, if I can, so this report identifies what we had planned for the 2024 capital renewal for particularly road maintenance. And so we have some pretty ongoing projects. One is Brody Drive and Carleon Line. This project has been through the design phase. We worked with utilities, including Bell Canada, and a small number of Hydro One conflicts, which are sort of ongoing, and we're advancing the project alongside those utility relocations, mostly on Carleon Line. And we're here this 2024 ready to build. So those two are the larger projects for the year. And the other projects are somewhat routine maintenance. You'll see there, Telford Line overpass up to Stockdale. That's just a basic reconstruction project, rehabilitation project. And we'll take the opportunity to address the overpass as well with a shave and pave. That's what we call like a midlife renewal strategy. And then the one that kind of is interesting to discuss is Hodgins Road. So Hodgins Road is a preservation project that we're recommending. We had identified an excellent candidate for preservation on Hodgins Road between Quarry Road and Port Severn Road. And what this uses is a micro surfacing, similar to what the County of Simcoe uses for their preservation projects. And the intent there is to delay the degradation of the surface by protecting it from water intrusion while it's in relatively good form. The pavement structure itself has a number of cracks, and we're losing a lot of aggregate at the surface. But this treatment will prevent more water ingress and prevent degradation of this asset. So, any questions? I guess is I'll kind of open it up.
Any questions from council? So this will be discussed at budget, just so that we're all aware. So we'll have a good discussion at budget, and whether or not they get approved, we'll make that decision then. Go ahead, Councillor McIntyre.
Through the chair to Derek. I'm just struggling a little bit with the Brody Drive reconstruction being $2.5 million. What length of a stretch is that, firstly? And secondly, I came across there this morning just to check that, and I didn't find the road to be as beat up as Carleon reconstruction, the 2.3. I don't understand why it's $2.5 million for that little stretch. Yep. If you could explain that, I'd appreciate it.
So through the chair, if I can, so these cost estimates are direct translation from the engineer's estimate that was assigned the file. These two jobs are quite a bit different than the others. This is a reconstruction, and the purpose for that is twofold. One, there's a widening effect for both roads. We're going to be placing a paved shoulder and a small buffer strip, aligning with the 2012 recommendations from the TMP to connect the Utah Trail with the City of Orillia, but also just generally speaking, the cycle network of Cycle On Ontario. That's the goal, is to reconstruct these two roadways. We don't do that very often, but it does drive up the cost in terms of quantity of effort there. The benefit is a much longer service life. So these roads, unlike resurfacing, will have a much longer overall life expectancy, and it will offer midlife interventions, the shave and paves of the future to continue that road fabric well into the future. There is, generally speaking, we also feel that these numbers are generally high compared to our estimates previously, and using some local pricing. The engineers have been fairly conservative on this, and these are probably a little bit inflated, but nonetheless, they are the numbers we're working with. Where it boils down to is the competitive bid process of tender, and getting those contractors to the table will set the true price that we advance into construction. So, just if that gives it some context.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Yeah, if I may, through the mayor?
Go ahead, Councillor Brennan, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, first of all, you have no idea how pleased I am to see Carleon on the top of the list. I'm just trying to figure out, where is the cutoff between the Brody Drive construction and the Carleon? The Carleon would have to include, I'm hoping, the road surface in front of Silver Creek Estates.
Yeah. Yes, certainly. Through the chair, actually both roads are kind of reconstructed in full length, while Carleon stops north of Division. But Brody Drive, right from the off ramp, if you will, in front of the mall.
Okay.
And then all the way through to Division Road, and slightly north of Division Road on Carleon. So they are pretty long lengths of road, Brody being about 1.4 kilometers, and Carleon, including the stretch above Division Road, is 2.2 kilometers. So a pretty significant reinvestment into our road network, both in terms of the quality of the reconstruction as well as the length.
You will probably reduce my complaint load on roads by about 40% when you get that done. Just gonna say. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I like the idea that you've got to back up here through the mayor to Derek, that Narrows Road needs attention, and that. So that's on the radar. But I still haven't lost sight with the roads I mentioned last year, i.e. Lovering Line and Mount Stephen, and we can't forget them. I know Lovering Line, it was in the TMP that maybe in 5 years we're going to look at that. So I just don't want to lose sight of, even though they're low traffic, they're still Many people live on Lovering Line and Mount Stephen, and we can't forget them. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Cox.
Yeah, through the chair to Derek. So Carleon and Brody are high, and you're saying that we could sharpen our pencils on those with the costs, because that's a lot of money for two roads.
Through the chair, I think I'm hearing some concerns with the value. These are values established by the engineer, through the process of design, and so they may not be terribly off. However, when we did our initial estimates, they were probably 20 to 30% lower than this. So what we'll do is we'll work with the engineer to get some local pricing built into their estimate and make sure that our budget values going to the meeting for capital budget deliberations, reflect what we see as market value in our area for this kind of work.
Okay, and supplemental, I'm good with the roads that we have, and I know we'll have a thorough discussion at budget time, but thank you for bringing this forward and having the backup roads in.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Minnis. You're on mute, Councillor.
Yes. No, I knew. I was trying to find the button. Thank you. Through the chair, I have a couple questions. The in the lower section in the analysis, you've got 2 projects listed recommended to commence design phase. One is Lakeside Drive reconstruction urbanization design. Is that similar to what's going on now for Bayou Road?
Yeah, through the chair, that's right. We through the TMP process, we identified a desire to create a bit of a collector roadway throughout the West Shore area, kind of parallel with the highway. And this just lines up with those recommendations. So the reconstruction design looks at, where can we accommodate active transportation or sidewalks, building the more appropriate pavement width and that sort of thing, and acknowledging that this road probably sees the most traffic or some of the most traffic in the area. So would be having a bit stronger, more significant pavement structure.
Thank you. And supplementary, if that's the case, and since Bayou is out, I think, for tender now for the similar design project work, should Bayou not be listed under one of the recommendation of roadways for next budget?
Yeah, so through the chair, that's a good, so these are new projects,
Okay.
The carry forward project. So we've awarded that project as well as the South Sparrow Lake design to Tatham Engineering. And so you'll see that in the budget details that's carried forward into 24.
Thank you. And my last comment is under the Huffman and Cox Drive bullet in brackets. It says previously note reconstruction activity in 2033. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
10 years out? Okay.
Through the chair, it's that was the roads needs study. So we looked at the network as a whole at a network level and put timings that were affordable. But we do know from the previous conversations and roads additions list for 23 that Huffman and Cox, was to have a bit more priority. So we have instead of conversion to reconstruction, we're advancing, basically a very simple rehab.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? So I just want to add, where is the Foxmead Bridge? Is it still in the queue to be done next year, Derek?
Yeah, through the chair, is actually in the queue to be done this year. Staff have had some challenges getting that particular project in through the design phase, but nonetheless, we're going to keep advancing that so that we can put the weight distribution slab and some upgrades to that structure prior to advancing the reconstruction of Foxmead, which we know is a near priority as well.
Thank you. So again, I'm just going to comment if no one else has comments. I do have concerns with the pricing of both Carleon and Brody. That's almost a $5 million hit on not a very long road, but we can have that discussion at budget. I'm grateful Derek has brought this forward. It looks like a great report for 2024. But again, we can discuss it at budget as to what we'll approve and what we won't approve. Any further comments? Okay. Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
Thank you. The motion reads that Public Works Report number W23-040 dated October 4th, 2023, with respect to the 2024 road resurfacing program be received for information.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, second by Councillor Minnies. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to 1.3, Corporate Services Report number C23-006, tile drain loans. Who would like to speak to that? Mr. Plunkett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You have two reports in front of you there. One is for a new loan through the tile drain loan of $45,000. Our current borrowing bylaw doesn't have sufficient funds to fund that $45,000. So we need to apply to OMAFRA for an additional borrowing bylaw. We've done so. Typically, they've been about $150,000, but the maximum loan available has gone from $20,000, $50,000, and now the last three loans we've been asked for have all been close to $50,000. So we need to increase that bylaw in order to be able to fund this loan in particular, and then it'll give us enough room to fund approximately 7 more loans that are about 50,000 before we're required to do another one. The tile drain loans, we just act as an intermediary, so they're funded by the province, and we make about $300 an administration fee on each one of these loans. It is paid for through their taxes accounts on over a 10-year period.
Thank you. Madam CEO, did you want to say anything? I saw you pop up.
Thank you. Through the chair. No, I was just going to ask the director to give a bit more history on how the tile drain program works, but I think he covered it at the end.
Mr. Plunkett, do you think that's enough? Because I know that pricing of tile draining a 100-acre farm has doubled. So you could probably had one 10 years ago done for 40,000. And my understanding now is it's doubled to 80,000. So is it enough, or do we need to apply for more?
At this point in time, I would suggest the 350,000 is enough.
Okay.
And what I'll do is now that we've been getting quite a few tile drain loan applications, we'll keep an eye on it, and if we start to utilize it, we'll increase it then.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion from council? Okay, thank you, Mr. Plunkett. Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
Certainly. The motion reads that Corporate Services Report number C23-006 dated October 4th, 2023 regarding tile drain loans be received, and that a draft bylaw to raise money to provide financial assistance in the construction of drainage works under the Tile Drainage Act be considered under the bylaw section of the agenda, and further that the bylaw be brought forward immediately.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder, please. Did you want to speak, Councillor Brennan? I see your thumb up.
That just means he's okay with it. The thumb up.
Okay.
Does.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Taylor, second by Deputy Mayor Cox. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Any new business?
Oh, no, Your Worship, there's a second tile drain loan motion.
Oh, I thought Andrew clumped them together. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Corporate Service Report number C23-005, tile drain loan. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
Thank you. So the motion reads that Corporate Services Report number C23-005 dated October 4th, 2023 regarding a tile drain loan be received, and further that the tile drain loan in the amount of $45,200 be approved, and further that the bylaw be brought forward immediately.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Taylor, second by Councillor Minnies. All in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Thank you. New business. No new business. General bylaws. Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
Thank you. And I will note that I have separated out the one bylaw that is tied to Councillor Taylor's pecuniary interests. So that is 2023-64. So we'll deal with that one first and then come back and do the rest, covering the rest of them.
Okay. Madam CAO.
I just wanted to note that also on the library board, we had to make a slight adjustment because minimum wage went up October 1st. So that is corrected in the bylaw that the mayor will sign.
Okay. Thank you.
So the first motion is that bylaw number 2023-64 be and is hereby read a first, second, third time and finally passed.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, second by Councillor Minnings. All in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Thank you.
Thank you. And the second one is that bylaws number 2023-60 to 2023-63 and 2023-65 to 2023-67 inclusive be and are hereby read a first, second, third time and finally passed.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Minnings. Councillor and second by Councillor Brennan. All in favor?
Yes.
That's carried. Announcements. Any announcements? No announcements. No closed session. Confirmation bylaw, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Motion reads that bylaw number 2023-68 be and is hereby read a first, second, third time and finally passed.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, second by Deputy Mayor Cox. All in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Thank you. Adjournment. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Minnings, second by Councillor or Deputy Mayor Cox. All in favor?
Yes.
That is carried. Thank you very much, everyone.
Have a good day.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Everyone. Enjoy the